Her mate rejected her publicly for her sister on New Year's Eve, but the Alpha King claimed her before everyone. An Original Romance by Maggie Reed. Prologue. She had always known she wasn't enough. Maya grew up in the shadow of her younger sister, Olivia, the perfect one, the golden child, the one born with the gift of healing wounds with a single touch. While Olivia shone like a star among the wolves of the Crescent Moon Pack, Maya was just ordinary. No special gifts. Nothing that made her memorable, except for one thing. Dante had chosen her as his mate. Or so she thought. On New Year's Eve, beneath the starlit sky that witnessed the celebration of another cycle, Maya discovered that even that was a lie. The white dress she wore, a symbol of the mate bond recognition ceremony, felt heavy as chains. The hall packed with wolves seemed like a cage of judging eyes, and when Dante stepped onto the stage with her, Maya felt cold sweat on her palms. But it wasn't the nervousness of a bride, it was foreboding. The words he spoke before the entire pack cut like blades. I reject Maya as my mate. My true bond has always been with Olivia. Shame burned her face when the murmurs exploded. Pain tore through her chest when Olivia climbed onto the stage, false tears in her eyes, and accepted Maya's place. And humiliation crushed her when the pack alpha, her own father, didn't say a single word in her defense. Maya ran. She crossed the hall, descended the steps, ran into the forest with her white dress tearing on branches. Tears blinded her vision. The cold night bit at her skin. But that night, when she unknowingly crossed the forbidden border into the Northern Kingdom, she had no idea she was about to trigger an ancient law, and that the golden eyes watching her from the shadows belonged to the most dangerous werewolf in all territories. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The taste of blood in her mouth was the only sign that Maya had bitten her lip too hard. She stood in the center of the great hall of the Crescent Moon Pack, surrounded by hundreds of wolves staring at her with expressions ranging from pity to contempt. The white dress her mother had hand-embroidered, every stitch a prayer of hope, now felt like a shroud. Maya felt the weight of the fabric as if it were pulling her down, into a hole from which she would never escape. Dante stood beside her on the elevated stage, but every inch between them felt like an abyss. He wasn't looking at her. His brown eyes, which had once brightened at the sight of her, now fixed on a distant point in the hall, as if Maya were invisible. Her heart pounded so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. Brothers and sisters of the Crescent Moon Pack, the voice of Alpha Marcus, her father, echoed through the hall. He sat on the stone throne with his mate Helena beside him. Maya's mother avoided her gaze. Tonight, on the last night of the year, we witnessed the recognition of the bond between Dante Ferreira and... Maya took a deep breath, trying to control the trembling in her hands. Dante moved. He turned to her for the first time since they'd climbed onto the stage. His look was cold, distant, as if he were looking through a ghost. I reject you, Maya. The words fell like stones into the absolute silence that settled. Maya blinked, unable to comprehend. Her brain refused to process what she'd just heard. The voices around her began to whisper, a growing murmur that sounded like the buzz of angry bees. What? Her own voice came out weak, almost inaudible. Dante took a step back, creating even more distance between them. I reject you as my mate. Before the moon and the pack, I sever our bond. Pain exploded in her chest, not the physical pain of a true bond being broken, because they had never completed the mating ritual, but the pain of being shattered from within. Maya felt her legs weaken. She clutched the edge of the dress, her nails digging into the fabric. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Dante finally looked her in the eyes, and Maya saw something there that made her wish she were dead. Pity, not love, not remorse, just pity. Because my true bond has always been with someone else. He looked to the side, at the crowd. Olivia, come here. The name hit Maya like a punch. No, not Olivia, not her sister. But then she saw it. Olivia's delicate figure emerging from the crowd, her green eyes glittering with tears that seemed perfectly rehearsed. The sky blue dress she wore made her skin even more luminous. She climbed the steps slowly, her head bowed in false humility. "Dante," Olivia whispered, her voice hoarse with emotion. "I didn't want it to be like this. Maya, I'm so sorry." "Don't." Maya backed away, stumbling over her own dress. "Don't do this. You can't." "The bond between Dante and Olivia is true," said Alpha Marcus, his voice cutting off any protest. "The moon doesn't lie. If he feels the connection with her, then that's what must be honored." Maya looked at her father, silently pleading. But he looked away. No one was going to defend her. Not her father, not her mother, no one. Dante took Olivia's hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. The scene was obscene. Maya stood there, still in her wedding dress, and her mate, the man who was supposed to be hers, touched another woman, touched her sister. The murmurs grew, transforming into open voices. Some wolves laughed. Others made cruel comments that Maya could hear perfectly. Always knew she wasn't good enough. No gifts, no strength. What kind of mate would she be? Poor thing. But at least now Dante can have someone real. The words were knives burying themselves in her flesh. Maya felt something warm run down her face and realized she was crying. The tears came silently, treacherously, revealing her weakness for all to see. She tried to wipe them away, but couldn't stop crying. "Maya," Olivia approached, extending her hand in a gesture that must have seemed kind to others, but which Maya saw for what it really was, a final blow. "Please understand. We didn't choose this. The bond—" "Shut up." Maya's voice came out low, dangerous. "Don't talk to me. Never again." She descended from the stage, staggering, the white dress dragging behind her like a trail of wreckage. The crowd parted, creating a corridor through which she passed. No one touched her. No one consoled her. They just watched her as if she were a spectacle. Maya pushed open the double doors of the hall with force. The cold night air hit her tear-wet face. New Year's celebration music still played inside, now muffled. Fireworks exploded in the sky, illuminating everything in flashes of color. Red, blue, gold. She ran. She ran through the gardens, then down the trail leading to the forest. Her heels broke and she kicked them off, continuing barefoot. Branches tore the dress, scratched her skin. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except putting distance between her and that cursed place. Tears still fell, but now they came with sobs that tore at her throat. Maya stumbled on a root and fell to her knees on the cold earth. The pain in her scraped knees was nothing compared to the pain in her chest. She raised her face to the sky. The full moon shone, indifferent to her suffering. "Why?" Maya screamed at the moon. "What did I do to deserve this?" Silence. Only the sound of wind in the trees. She stood up, wiping her face with the back of her hand. She needed to go further. She needed to disappear. Maybe if she went far enough, she could forget, could stop feeling. That's when she noticed. The forest was different. The trees were taller, more twisted. A light fog covered the ground. And there was a smell in the air, wild, dangerous, like metal and storm. Maya stopped, her heart racing for a different reason now. She had crossed a border. She didn't know which pack's territory this was, but she knew she shouldn't be here. A branch snapped behind her. Maya turned sharply, survival instinct finally awakening. But there was no one, just shadows dancing among the trees. Then she felt it. The presence. It wasn't a common wolf. It was something more. Something immense. A pressure in the air that made her inner wolf cower in fear and something else. Recognition. "You shouldn't be here, little wolf." The voice came from the shadows, deep and controlled, but with a current of danger underneath. "Do you know the price for crossing into the Northern Kingdom without permission?" Maya backed away, but her back hit a tree. He had moved, silent as the night itself, and now stood in front of her. The man was massive. He must have been almost 6.5 feet tall. Broad shoulders that blocked the moonlight. His eyes were golden, not the common gold of wolves, but liquid gold, like molten metal, glowing in the darkness. Black hair fell to his shoulders, and there was a scar crossing his right eyebrow. He wore black clothes that looked made for combat, not parties, and Maya could feel power emanating from him in waves that made her wolf growl softly in warning. Or was it submission? Her voice failed. I didn't know. I was just running. He tilted his head, studying her. His eyes traveled over the torn white dress, the bare and bloodied feet, the face stained with tears and dirt. By the clothes, I'd say you ran from a wedding. Or were cast out of one. Shame burned again. Maya lifted her chin, trying to gather whatever dignity she still had. That's none of your business. His lips curved into something that wasn't exactly a smile. Everything that crosses into my territory is my business. He took a step closer, and Maya felt his scent. Pine, rain, and something wild that made her body react in ways she didn't understand. Especially when it's an unaccompanied she-wolf, injured and wearing a blood-stained wedding dress on New Year's Eve. I'll leave, Maya said quickly. Just let me pass and Too late. He extended his hand and touched her face, his fingers firm but strangely gentle as they turned her head to the side. Maya felt something burn on the back of her neck, a sensation of heat that spread like liquid fire. You've already activated the sacred territory law. What? Maya tried to pull away, but he held her by the arm. When an unmated she-wolf crosses my border on the night of the turning moon, wearing white and shedding tears, she becomes mine by right. His golden eyes pierced hers. It's an ancient law. You didn't know? Panic rose in her throat. No, I didn't. Doesn't matter. He released her arm but didn't step away. The law has been activated. You feel the mark burning? It's the seal of the North. It means you belong to me now. I don't belong to anyone, Maya shouted, surprised by her own vehemence. After everything she'd been through, after all the humiliation, she wasn't going to simply accept being another man's property. He arched an eyebrow, and this time there was definitely a gleam of interest, amusement, in his eyes. Bravery. Didn't expect that from someone who was crying 2 minutes ago. Who are you? Maya demanded. I am Cale Thorne, Alpha King of the Northern Kingdom. He took a step back, crossing his arms. And you, little wolf in a white dress, have just become mine. Chapter 2. Maya couldn't breathe properly. Alpha King. The words echoed in her mind like a warning bell. She had heard stories about Cale Thorne since childhood, whispers about the most powerful werewolf in the Northern Territories, the only one who had unified 6 warring packs under a single command. They said he was cruel, merciless, that he had destroyed entire packs that refused to bow, and she stood before him, dressed in rags, unprotected, having just triggered some ancient law she didn't even know existed. This can't be happening, Maya whispered to herself, looking at the forest around her as if searching for an exit. But there were only shadows and twisted trees. I just needed to get out of there. And you did. Kyle's voice was pragmatic, as if discussing the weather. Straight into my territory, on the most important night of the lunar calendar. Maya finally looked at him again. Even in a relaxed posture, he radiated danger. The golden eyes gleamed with an intensity that made her inner wolf struggle, torn between fleeing and submitting completely. You said the law was activated. Maya forced the words out, trying to keep her voice steady. What does that mean exactly? Kyle tilted his head, studying her. For a moment, Maya thought he wouldn't answer. Then he gestured with his head toward the trail behind him. Walk with me. I'm not going to discuss ancient laws in the middle of the forest with you about to pass out from exhaustion. I'm not going to... It wasn't a request. The command in his voice made Maya's wolf cower. She hated the instinctive reaction, but couldn't help it. There was something about him. An alpha presence so strong it was almost physical. Maya followed him down the trail, keeping her distance. Every step hurt her bare and wounded feet. The torn dress caught on branches and stones. She felt ridiculous, miserable, a pathetic spectacle of everything that had gone wrong in her life. The sacred territory law, Kel began without looking back, was created over 1,000 years ago, when packs were still nomadic and lone she-wolves were vulnerable to attacks. If an unmated she-wolf crossed an alpha's territory border on the night of the turning moon, the first full moon of the new year, and was in danger, she could claim protection. Protection? Maya repeated, confused. You said I belong to you? Protection comes with a price. Now he looked over his shoulder, the golden eyes piercing her. You become part of the kingdom. You can no longer return to your pack of origin without my permission. And as Alpha King, I have the right to decide your fate. Where you live, what role you play, and— He paused. Whether you'll be offered as a mate to one of my commanders or kept as part of the court. Maya's blood ran cold. You're saying I'll be— sold? Like property? Not sold. Kale stopped, making Maya almost collide with him. Allocated. It's different. Doesn't sound different. Would you rather go back to the pack that humiliated you? The question was asked in a casual tone, but Maya felt the weight behind it. Go back to the sister who stole your mate? To the father who didn't defend you? Maya looked away, shame and anger returning with force. No, she couldn't go back. She would never look at those faces again without seeing the pity, the contempt, the judgment. So you choose, Kyle continued, starting to walk again. Stay here, under my protection and my rules, or try your luck alone in the forest. But I warn you, there are worse things than me in these lands. They emerged from the forest into a clearing, and Maya stopped abruptly. Before her stood a castle. No, castle was too small a word for it. It was a fortress, walls of black stone rising dozens of meters, pointed towers piercing the sky, illuminated windows dotting the structure like watchful eyes. A stone bridge crossed a dry moat, and guards were positioned on the ramparts. Welcome to Ravenclaw Castle, Kale said, and there was something like pride in his voice. Capital of the Northern Kingdom. Maya swallowed hard. She had heard of this place. They said it was impregnable, that it had never fallen in battle. And now she would be— what? Prisoner? Resident? Let's go. Kale gestured for her to follow. When they crossed the bridge, the guards on the ramparts saw them and immediately bowed. Alpha King, one of them shouted. Welcome back. Kale just waved and kept walking. Maya followed, feeling the guards' eyes on her. She could imagine what they were thinking. Who was this bedraggled she-wolf the Alpha King had brought home on New Year's Eve? The gates opened with a heavy creak. The inner courtyard was immense, paved with dark stones. There were soldiers training even at this hour, their swords clinking in the cold air. When they saw Kale, they stopped and bowed. He didn't seem to notice. Or perhaps he was so accustomed to reverence that it no longer mattered. They entered the castle through double doors of dark wood. The main hall was impressive, high ceiling with wooden beams, tapestries hanging on the walls showing battles and wolves running beneath the moon. Torches illuminated the space with dancing light. A middle-aged woman with graying hair pulled into a tight bun appeared from a side door. She wore a simple but elegant dress, and her eyes widened at the sight of Maya. Sir, she said, bowing to Kyle, we weren't expecting your return so soon. Change of plans, Alara. Kyle gestured to Maya. This is— what's your name? The question caught her off guard. Throughout the entire walk, he hadn't asked. Maya. Maya, Kale repeated, as if testing the name. She activated the sacred territory law. She'll be staying at the castle. Alara's eyes moved from Kale to Maya, analyzing quickly. Maya was certain the woman was taking a complete inventory. Torn wedding dress, bare feet, face dirty with earth and tears. Pathetic. She must look pathetic. I understand. Alara nodded. Professional. I'll prepare a room for her and— No, Kale interrupted. She stays in the East Wing, in the tower. Something changed in Alara's expression. Surprise, even concern. The tower, sir? But that wing is reserved for— I know what it's reserved for. Kale's tone left no room for discussion. The tower. Now. Yes, sir. Alara bowed again, then looked at Maya with something that might be sympathy. Come, dear. Let's take care of you. Maya hesitated, looking at Kyle. He had already turned, walking toward another corridor. As if she no longer mattered. As if she were just another task completed in his night. Wait, Maya called out, surprising herself. You're not going to… Tell me what happens now. Kyle stopped but didn't turn. You rest. Tomorrow, we'll discuss your future. He looked over his shoulder and the golden eyes gleamed in the torchlight. And Maya, don't try to run. Protection has limits. Cross that border without permission again, and there won't be a second chance. Then he was gone, swallowed by the darkness of the corridor. Maya stood there, her knees trembling, finally allowing shock and exhaustion to hit her. It had been the longest night of her life. Rejection, humiliation, flight. And now this, trapped in a castle, under the control of an alpha king who could decide her life with a word. Come, dear. Alara's voice was gentle. You need a hot bath and food. The rest can wait until tomorrow. Maya followed her, each step up the stone stairs making her body protest. They climbed and climbed until they finally reached a dark wooden door at the top of one of the towers. Alara opened it, revealing a circular room. It was surprisingly beautiful. Canopy bed, tall windows showing the forest and mountains in the distance, a fireplace already lit, dark wooden furniture, soft rugs on the stone floor. I'll bring hot water for a bath, Alara said, and something to eat. Why did he put me here? Maya asked, looking around. You seemed surprised. Alara hesitated. This wing is where the Alpha King places important people, high-value guests, not common prisoners. But I'm not important. To him, apparently, you are. Alara studied her with shrewd eyes. There can only be two reasons for this. Either he sees you as a valuable political alliance, or… She left the sentence unfinished. Or what? Or the law triggered something more than you think. Alara began to leave. Rest, Maya. Tomorrow will be a long day. When the door closed, Maya finally allowed herself to collapse. She fell to her knees on the rug, sobs returning with force. Everything was destroyed. Her life, her plans, her identity. She was no longer Maya of the Crescent Moon Pack. She wasn't Dante's mate. She was nothing. Except, apparently, an Alpha King's property. Maya looked out the window at the full moon. If this is protection, she whispered, I'd love to know what punishment looks like. The moon didn't answer. It just shone, indifferent and eternal, over the kingdom that was now her prison. Chapter 3. Maya woke up disoriented. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was stone, with dark beams forming geometric patterns. This wasn't her room. It wasn't the familiar white-painted ceiling of her parents' house. Then it all came back at once. The rejection, the flight, Kale, the castle. She sat up in bed, her body aching. Someone had cleaned her wounds while she slept and left a simple gray linen dress on a chair. Through the window, the sun was already high. It must be almost noon. Maya got up slowly and changed, abandoning the remains of the white dress that now lay in a pile on the floor like the carcass of a dead life. The new dress was simple but soft, falling to her ankles. There were also leather sandals that fit perfectly. A knock on the door made her jump. Come in, she said, her voice still hoarse. Alara entered carrying a tray. Good morning, or good afternoon, technically. She placed the tray on a small table near the window. I brought food. You need to eat. Maya's stomach growled in response. She hadn't eaten since before the ceremony. She sat down and attacked the bread, cheese, and fruit with more hunger than elegance. Alara watched with approval. The Alpha King asked me to bring you to the council hall when you woke up. Maya swallowed with difficulty. Now? Finish eating first. But yes, he's waiting. 20 minutes later, Maya followed Alara through the castle corridors. In daylight, the place was even more impressive. The walls were decorated with ancient weapons, shields of conquered packs, and portraits of past alphas. Wolves, both in human and animal form, filled the corridors. Everyone stopped to watch Maya pass, their gazes curious and evaluating. Do they know? Maya asked quietly. About the law? News travels fast in a castle, Alara responded diplomatically. And the Alpha King doesn't hide his actions. Everyone knows that a she-wolf activated the sacred territory law last night. Great! Once again, Maya was the center of gossip and speculation. Ilara stopped before double doors of dark oak. 2 guards were positioned on each side. They nodded to Ilara and opened the doors. The council hall was a long room with an enormous table in the center. Maps were scattered across the surface, and about 10 wolves, all men, all clearly warriors by their posture and scars, stood around. Kyle was at the head of the table, analyzing a map. He wore black combat clothes, and his hair was pulled back in a low ponytail. When Maya entered, he raised his eyes. Maya. He didn't smile. Come here. She crossed the room, feeling every wolf's eyes on her. The silence was oppressive. Gentlemen, Kyle said, still looking at Maya. This is Maya. She activated the sacred territory law and is now under the protection of the Northern Kingdom. One of the men, tall, with blonde hair and a scar crossing his lip, leaned forward. With all due respect, Alpha King, the last time the law was activated was over 50 years ago. Are you sure you want to honor it? The law exists for a reason, Darius. Kyle's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. And I don't break Northern traditions. But that means, another man spoke, older with graying hair, that she can no longer return to her pack of origin without your permission. And any attempt by her pack to retrieve her would be seen as an act of war. Maya blinked. She hadn't thought about that. Her pack? Her father might try to get her back? No, of course not. They had made it clear she didn't matter. The Crescent Moon pack won't come after her, Kyle said, confirming Maya's thoughts. Alpha Marcus isn't foolish enough to challenge the North for a daughter he publicly allowed to be humiliated. The truth hurt, but Maya kept her face neutral. So, what's the plan? Darius asked. She stays at court? Is allocated to one of the commanders? Neither, for now. Kyle finally looked directly at Maya. Before any decision, I need to know more about her. Know what? Maya asked, finding her voice. There's nothing to know. I don't have special gifts. I'm not a warrior. I'm not politically useful. I'm just ordinary. Ordinary? Kyle repeated the word as if it were strange. You activated an ancient law, crossed my border on the most important night of the year, and caught my attention. There's nothing ordinary about that. It was an accident, Maya insisted. It was fate. The word came from the older man. He studied Maya with penetrating eyes. Ancient laws aren't activated by accident, girl. Magic recognizes intention, need, and compatibility. Compatibility? Maya frowned. The sacred territory law doesn't work for just any she-wolf, the man explained. Only for those who have potential. Some connection with the land, with the alpha of the territory, or with a greater purpose. That's ridiculous, Maya said. I don't have a connection with anything. Kyle moved then, walking around the table until he stood before her. Up close, he was even more intimidating. The golden eyes pierced her as if they could see through her. Turn, he ordered. What? Turn. Let me see your neck. Maya hesitated, then obeyed. She felt Kale's fingers push aside her hair, exposing the skin. There was silence. Then he murmured, as I thought. What is it? The older man asked, approaching. The seal mark isn't complete, Kyle said. Look, Magnus, the lines, they're changing. Maya felt a tingling on the back of her neck. What does that mean? Magnus, the older man, whistled low. That's very rare. It means the law is evolving. It didn't just mark her as protected. It's trying to form a bond. Maya's heart raced. Bond? What kind of bond? The kind that only happens between true mates, Magnus said solemnly. Between an alpha and his Luna. The silence that fell in the room was absolute. Maya backed away, looking at Kale with something between horror and disbelief. No, that's not possible. True mates are recognized instantly. We don't. Not always. Magnus shook his head. Sometimes the bond needs to be awakened. And certain ancient laws, like the sacred territory law, can act as catalysts. You're saying, Darius intervened, voice tense, that this she-wolf could be the Alpha King's Luna. I'm saying, Magnus corrected, that the magic believes she could be. But true bonds need to be accepted by both parties. If she or the Alpha King reject the connection, it will die before completing. Maya felt the ground move beneath her feet. No, this couldn't be happening. She couldn't be Kale's mate. She barely knew him. And besides, true mates were rare, precious, destined. She wasn't special enough to. This changes everything, another commander said. If she truly is the Luna, she can't be allocated or sent away. She also can't be free in the castle until we know for sure, Darius argued. If the bond doesn't complete and she tries to flee, it could cause instability in the territory's magic. So what do you suggest? Kyle asked, voice dangerously calm. She stays under your direct supervision, Magnus said, for however long it takes for the mark to complete or die. That usually takes from one full moon to the next, a complete cycle. 1 month, Kyle murmured. 1 month in which she can't be far from you for too long. Or the connection will weaken, Magnus continued. That's how these things work. The magic needs proximity to decide if the bond is true. Maya finally found her voice. And if I don't want this? What if I refuse? All eyes turned to her. Then the mark will die, Magnus said gently. And you'll be free to do what you want. Within the kingdom's limits, of course. But know that rejecting a true bond before even exploring it has consequences. What consequences? Pain. Emptiness. The feeling that something essential was ripped from you. Magnus looked at her with sadness. I've seen wolves never recover from rejecting a true bond. They live, but not really. They just exist. Like she was existing now, Maya realized. After Dante, after the rejection, she already felt empty. I need to think, she whispered. You have time, Kale said. His voice was neutral, but there was something in his eyes Maya couldn't decipher. But meanwhile, you stay with me. Where I go, you go. That's non-negotiable. I'm not a dog to be dragged on your leash, Maya retorted, surprised by her own boldness. Kale's lips curved. Not exactly a smile, but almost. No, you're a she-wolf. And she-wolves in my kingdom obey the alpha. Especially when that alpha might be your destined mate. He took a step closer, and Maya felt that scent again. Pine, rain, and something wild that made her body react in confusing ways. Let's make a deal. Kale said quietly, just for her to hear. You have this month to get to know me, to explore what this mark means. At the end, if you still want to reject the bond, I won't force you. But at least give fate a chance before throwing away something that might be real. Maya stared at him. What if I've been hurt too much to believe in fate? Then I'll have to teach you to believe again. His golden eyes gleamed. One lesson at a time. Chapter 4. The next 3 days were the strangest of Maya's life. Kale wasn't joking when he said she'd have to stay close to him. Wherever he went, she went. Council meetings, training sessions in the courtyard, meals in the Great Hall, even night patrols along the border. Maya was always a few feet away. At first, it was humiliating. The castle wolves watched her with barely disguised curiosity, whispering theories about who she was and why the Alpha King kept her so close. But Kyle ignored the gossip completely, and eventually, Maya learned to do the same. What was harder to ignore was Kale's very presence. He was different from any Alpha Maya had known. Her father, Alpha Marcus, ruled with pomp and ceremony, surrounding himself with protocol and distance. Dante was the type of Alpha who pretended to be accessible but kept everyone at a calculated distance. Kyle was direct, brutal sometimes, but honest. When one of his commanders made a mistake, Kale didn't yell. He just pointed out the problem and expected it to be fixed. When younger wolves came asking for advice, he listened with genuine attention before responding. And when he was alone with Maya, which happened surprisingly often, he didn't pretend to be someone he wasn't. Why don't you smile? Maya asked one afternoon, while watching him analyze reports in his office. She sat in an armchair near the window, supposedly reading a book Alara had given her, but actually watching him. Kale raised his eyes. What? You? I've never seen you smile. Not really. There's not much to smile about when you're ruling six-packs that spent 200 years trying to destroy each other, he said, returning to the papers. Don't they try anymore? Not openly. Kyle put down the pen. But peace is fragile. There's always someone wanting to test limits, question authority, or conspire to take power. Maya closed the book. Sounds exhausting. It is. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. That's why I don't smile. I can't give anyone the impression that I'm satisfied or relaxed. The moment I do that, someone will interpret it as weakness. That's not living, Maya said softly. It's just surviving. Something changed in his expression. A quick flash of surprise, maybe even vulnerability. But it passed so quickly Maya almost thought she'd imagined it. And you? Kyle asked. What was your life like before? Maya hesitated. Talking about the past still hurt. Quiet. I tried to be useful, stay out of the way. My sister was always the favorite, so I learned to be invisible. Invisible? Cale repeated the word as if it didn't make sense. You're not good at that. What do you mean? Since you arrived, every wolf in this castle is aware of you. He stood and walked to the window where she was. You think you're invisible because your family made you believe that. But the truth? You draw attention just by existing. Maya felt her face warm. You're being kind. I'm never kind without reason. Cale moved closer, and Maya felt her heart race. And I'm not lying. There's something about you, Maya. Something the magic recognized before I even did. The mark, Maya whispered, remembering the seal on her neck that constantly tingled now. Maybe? His eyes fell to her lips for a fraction of a second before returning to her eyes. Or maybe the mark is just revealing what was already there. The door burst open, breaking the moment. Darius entered, his expression tense. Alpha King, we have a problem. Cale pulled away from Maya instantly, the leader's mask returning to place. What? Emissaries from the Crescent Moon Pack just arrived. They're requesting an audience. Darius looked at Maya, uncomfortable, and they're demanding that Maya be returned. Maya's blood ran cold. Chapter 5. The Great Hall was tense. Maya stood beside Cale's throne, not behind him, as would be expected of a prisoner, but beside him, a position of equality that didn't go unnoticed by the emissaries who had arrived. There were 3 of them. Maya immediately recognized the leader, Beta Thomas, her father's second-in-command. He was a burly man with brown hair and an always calculating look. Beside him were 2 warriors Maya didn't know well. Alpha King Cale, Thomas began with a bow that seemed merely protocol. We thank you for the audience. Beta Thomas. Cale sat on the stone throne, posture relaxed but eyes alert. Your presence here is unexpected. What brings the Crescent Moon Pack to the Northern Kingdom? We've come to retrieve what is ours. Thomas looked directly at Maya, and there was barely hidden contempt in his expression. Alpha Marcus's daughter, Maya, fled during an important ceremony 3 nights ago. We have reason to believe she crossed into your territory. And if she did? Kyle asked, voice dangerously soft. Then we ask that you return her. She's part of our pack, and internal matters should be resolved internally. Maya felt anger rise in her throat. They hadn't lifted a finger to defend her during the humiliation, but now they came to claim her? Why? Internal matters, Kyle repeated. Like allowing your daughter to be publicly rejected and humiliated by her own sister. Thomas had the decency to look minimally embarrassed. What happened was unfortunate, but true bonds can't be denied. Dante recognized his mate, and you decided Maya was disposable, Cale interrupted. So disposable that her own father didn't say a word in her defense. Alpha Marcus acts for the good of the pack, Thomas insisted. And now he asks that his daughter return so we can resolve the situation appropriately. Resolve how? Maya spoke for the first time, surprising everyone. She took a step forward. Marrying me to some other wolf who needs a political alliance? Hiding me in some corner so Dante and Olivia don't have to see me? Or just pretending I never existed? Thomas looked at her coldly. You have no authority to speak here, Maya. You're not— She has every right to speak, Cale cut in, standing. The change in atmosphere was immediate. His alpha power filled the room like a physical wave, making the emissaries instinctively step back. Because Maya is no longer part of the Crescent Moon Pack. What? Thomas blinked. I don't understand. She's our alpha's daughter. She can't simply... She activated the Sacred Territory Law, Cale declared. The commanders lined along the walls stirred, some startled. It was a public declaration, something that couldn't be taken back. On the night of the turning moon, Maya crossed my border in danger and helplessness. The law was activated. She's now under the Northern Kingdom's protection, and any attempt to remove her will be seen as an act of war. Thomas's face turned red. This is absurd. That law is archaic. It hasn't been used in 52 years, Magnus intervened, stepping from the shadows. But it's still valid. It's inscribed in the ancient treaties that all packs swore to honor when the kingdoms were formed. Alpha Marcus will never accept this, Thomas said through gritted teeth. Then Alpha Marcus can come personally to challenge me, Cale responded, descending the throne steps until he was face to face with Thomas. But warn your Alpha that if he comes, it won't be a conversation. It'll be war. And he knows he can't win against the Northern Kingdom. Thomas looked from Cale to Maya, calculating. Why would you do this? What is she to you? The question hung in the air. Cale could have told the truth, about the mark, about the potential bond, but he didn't. Instead, his answer was simple and definitive. She's mine. The word sent a shock through Maya, not because of the possessiveness, though that was there, but because of the way he said it, as if it were unquestionable fact. This is outrageous, Thomas hissed. You can't simply claim, I already have. Cale crossed his arms, and the law gives me that right. Now, you have two choices. Accept graciously and return to your Alpha with the news, or try to take Maya by force and discover why no one invades the Northern Kingdom and lives to tell about it. The silence was oppressive. Finally, Thomas backed down. Alpha Marcus will hear about this. Good. Make sure he hears every word. The emissaries left, their backs stiff with indignation. When the doors closed, Maya felt her legs weaken. She leaned against the throne, breathing heavily. You didn't need to do that, she said quietly. Yes, I did. Kyle turned to her. They didn't come to help you, Maya. They came because they're afraid. Afraid of what? That you might become something more here. Someone important. He touched her chin, making her look at him. They wanted you kept small, invisible, breakable. But you're in my territory now. And in my territory, you're going to discover exactly who you can be. Maya felt something move inside her. Not just the tingling of the mark, but something deeper. Hope, maybe. Or maybe just the first spark of believing she could be more than she'd always been told. I don't know how to be anything other than what I've always been, she admitted. Then I'll teach you. Cale released her chin but didn't step away. Starting now. Now? Now. He gestured to Darius. Get training equipment for her. Small size. Maya blinked. Training equipment? Why? Cale finally smiled. A small smile, but real. And Maya realized it was the first time she'd seen it. Because if you're going to stay in my kingdom, you're going to learn to defend yourself. No one else will humiliate you, Maya. Never again. But for that, you need to be strong enough to look any wolf in the eyes and know you can defend yourself. I'm not a warrior, Maya protested. Not yet. His golden eyes gleamed with something that could be challenge or promise. But you will be. Chapter 6. Maya had no idea training could hurt this much. 3 weeks had passed since the emissary's visit. 3 weeks of waking before dawn, training until her muscles screamed, studying leadership tactics with Magnus, and falling into bed so exhausted she didn't even dream. But something was changing. She could feel it in her body, muscles forming where there had only been softness before. She could feel it in her mind. Greater clarity, confidence growing like an insistent plant in rocky soil. And she could feel it in the mark on her neck, which now pulsed constantly whenever Cale was near. Again, Cale ordered, standing in the center of the training circle. Maya took a deep breath and attacked again, using the movement he'd taught her. But Kyle was much faster. He dodged easily and knocked her to the ground for the 10th time that morning. "You're telegraphing," he said, offering his hand to help her up. "Your eyes show where you're going to attack before you move." "How am I supposed to hide my eyes?" Maya asked, frustrated, accepting his hand. The touch sent the now familiar wave of heat up her arm. "Don't hide. Deceive." Kyle pulled her up but didn't immediately release her hand. "Look where you're not going to attack. Make your opponent prepare for the wrong defense." They trained for another hour before Kale finally nodded that he was satisfied. Maya was covered in sweat and dust, but for the first time, she had managed to land a hit on him. It hadn't caused damage. He had let her. But it still counted as progress. "Better," Kale said, throwing a towel to her. "You're learning." "I'm hurting," Maya corrected, wiping her face. "Pain means growth." They walked back to the castle together, and Maya realized she no longer felt uncomfortable in his silences. In the first days, Kale's silence was oppressive. Now it was peaceful. He didn't need to fill every second with empty words. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said as they climbed the stairs. "Always. Why are you doing this? Training me, I mean. If the mark doesn't complete, I'll eventually leave. Why invest so much time?" Kale stopped, making her stop too. They were in an empty part of the corridor, only sunlight filtering through tall windows. "Because even if the bond doesn't complete," he said carefully, "you still deserve to be strong. You deserve to know you can defend yourself, that you can look at anyone who ever hurt you and know they have no more power over you." Maya felt her throat tighten. "Do you really believe that?" "I never say things I don't believe." He took a step closer, and Maya had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "And I believe in you, Maya. More than you believe in yourself." The words hit her with unexpected force. When was the last time anyone had said they believed in her? Not in Olivia, not in Dante, not in anyone else. In her. "I don't know if I can live up to that," Maya whispered. "I'm not asking you to live up to it. I'm just asking you to try." His hand came up, his fingers lightly brushing the side of her face. "And maybe, eventually, believe it too." The moment was interrupted by Magnus's arrival, who rounded the corner with a worried expression. "Alpha King, I need to speak with you. It's urgent." Kale sighed but nodded. He looked at Maya. "Rest. Tomorrow we'll work on partial shifts." "Partial shifts?" Maya blinked. She could fully shift into a wolf, like any shifter. But partial shifts, maintaining human form but with wolf characteristics, were advanced. "You're ready," was all Kale said before following Magnus down the corridor. Maya returned to her room in the tower, still processing the conversation. There was something growing between her and Kale. She wasn't naive enough to deny it. It wasn't just the mark, that constant sensation of being connected to him. It was more human than that. The way he listened to her, the way he challenged her without diminishing her, the way he sometimes looked at her as if she were something precious he was afraid to break. She was falling, Maya realized with a shock. Falling for a man who could be her destined mate. Or who could be just another person who would eventually reject her. Night fell quickly, and Maya was finishing dinner in her room when she heard rapid knocking on the door. "Come in," she called. Ilara entered, face pale. "Maya, you need to come, quickly." "What happened?" "It's Kyle. He's injured." Maya's heart stopped. She stood so quickly the chair fell. "How? What?" "There was an attack on the southern border. He took a knife to the back." "Come!" Maya ran through the corridors, Ilara trying to keep up. They descended stairs, crossed rooms, until they reached the medical wing. The door was open, and Maya could see commanders gathered outside, faces tense. She pushed past them and entered. Kale was lying face down on a table, his torso bare and exposed. There was blood, a lot of blood, and a healer was working on a deep wound between his shoulder blades. Maya felt nausea seeing the torn flesh, but forced herself to approach. "Kyle," she whispered. He turned his head, and despite the obvious pain in his expression, his eyes softened when he saw her. "Maya, you shouldn't be here. Don't tell me what to do," she retorted, grabbing a chair and sitting beside him. Her hand found his, intertwining their fingers. "What happened?" Ambush. Rogue wolves trying to test defenses. He grimaced when the healer applied something to the wound. Nothing we can't handle. You took a knife to the back. It's not the first time. There was a touch of humor in his voice despite the situation. Won't be the last. Maya squeezed his hand tighter. The healer continued working, stitching the wound with experienced hands. It took almost an hour, and during all that time, Maya didn't let go of Kale's hand. When it was finally finished, the healer cleaned his hands. It'll heal in a few days, thanks to your accelerated healing. But you need to rest, Alpha King. No training, no patrols. Understood, Kale murmured, clearly with no intention of obeying. When everyone left and they were alone, Maya finally let the tears fall. You could have died, but I didn't. Kale sat up slowly, grimacing. Maya, look at me. She raised her eyes and saw he was smiling. A small, pained smile, but genuine. You were worried about me, he said softly. Of course I was. Maya wiped away tears angrily. You're an idiot for going on that patrol alone? I wasn't alone. There were 5 commanders with me, and you could have been killed and I never would have… She stopped, realizing what she was about to say. Never would have what? Kale asked, voice low. Maya found her courage. Never would have told you that maybe this bond isn't just the mark. Maybe it's real. The silence that followed was loaded with meaning. Then Kale reached out, touching her face with a gentleness that contrasted with his brute strength. Maya, I'm still scared, she admitted. Scared to believe and be broken again. I know. He leaned closer until their foreheads touched. But I promise, if you give me this chance, I'll spend every day proving you can trust this. In us. Maya closed her eyes, feeling his warmth, the scent that was now familiar and comforting. The mark on her neck pulsed. But it wasn't just that. It was her heart, beating in sync with his. Just don't die, she whispered. Not before I figure out what this can be. I promise, Kale said. And then, surprising them both, he pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. It was the first genuinely tender touch between them, and Maya felt something inside her break and rebuild at the same time. Chapter 7. The moon was 3 days from completing the cycle. Maya knew because she had marked every day on the small calendar Alara had given her. 1 month. That was the time Magnus had said it would take for the mark to complete, or die. And time was running out. Since the night Kale had been injured, something had changed between them. The tension that had always existed transformed into something more tangible. Touches lasted longer. Looks deepened. And Maya noticed she was always aware of where he was, as if an invisible thread connected her to him. It was terrifying. It was exciting. It was everything she didn't know she wanted. You're distracted, Kale commented during morning training. Maya blinked, realizing she'd stopped mid-movement. Sorry. He crossed the circle to stand in front of her. What are you thinking about? The cycle. We're almost at the end. Understanding passed through his eyes. And you're worried about what happens after, aren't you? Maya let out a humorless laugh. In 3 days, the mark will either complete making us bonded mates, or it'll die, and I'll be able to leave the Northern Kingdom. And I don't know what I want. Don't you know? Kyle asked softly. Or are you afraid to admit it? Maya looked at him. This man who a month ago was a stranger, and now was… everything. I don't want to make another mistake. I thought Dante was my future, and look how that ended. I'm not Dante. There was steel in his voice now. And you know that. I do. Maya touched his chest, feeling his heart beating strong underneath. But what if it's not enough? What if the mark is just deceptive magic? What if what we feel now disappears? Kale covered her hand with his, keeping it over his heart. Then we'll find out together. But Maya, I need you to know. Bond or not, magic or not, I choose you. Not because some ancient law forced me, but because you're the strongest, bravest, most incredible woman I've ever met. And if you choose me too, I'll spend the rest of my life showing you that you made the right decision. Tears burned in Maya's eyes. Do you really believe that? Every word. Maya took a deep breath. Then I choose you. I choose us. I choose to risk being broken again if it means having the chance to be whole with you." The smile Kyle gave was devastating, pure joy that transformed his entire face. And then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't hesitant. It was fire and need and relief and promise, all mixed into a kiss that made Maya's knees weaken. She clung to him, returning with equal intensity, pouring all the fear and hope and desire into the touch. When they finally separated, both were breathless. "I feel it," Maya whispered. "The mark. It's changing." Kale touched her neck, and she felt the tingling intensify. "It's completing," he confirmed. "The bond is sealing." What happened next was indescribable. Maya felt a wave of heat course through her entire body, starting at the mark and spreading like liquid fire through her veins. It wasn't pain. It was intensity. It was connection. It was as if every cell in her body was reorganizing, aligning, recognizing Kale as part of her. And then she felt it. Emotions that weren't hers. Overwhelming relief, fierce happiness, instinctive protection. Love that was so deep it seemed ancient, as if it had always been there waiting to be discovered. "Do you feel it?" Kale asked, voice hoarse. "Yes," Maya gasped. "I feel you. Your emotions. It's the mate bond," he completed. "Now we're connected. Forever. Forever." The word that would have once terrified Maya now sounded like a promise. But the moment was violently shattered by screams coming from the castle. Kale turned sharply, already in combat mode. Darius appeared running across the courtyard, face pale. "Alpha King, attack!" A massive force crossed the southern border. There are hundreds, maybe 1,000. "Which pack?" Kale demanded. "Crescent Moon," Darius said, and Maya felt the world tilt. "And they're demanding Maya be handed over, or they'll destroy everything." Chapter 8. The castle was controlled chaos. Soldiers ran through corridors, donning armor and grabbing weapons. Commanders shouted orders, organizing defenses. And Maya stood in the great hall, watching as Kale coordinated everything with brutal efficiency. "How many men do we have available?" he asked Magnus. 500 in the castle, plus 200 nearby. We can call in 20 minutes, Magnus responded. "But 1,000 against 700? The odds aren't good." "It doesn't need to be good. It needs to be enough." Kyle studied the map on the table. "They crossed in Sector 3? "Yes. And they're advancing fast. They'll reach the walls in less than an hour." Maya finally found her voice. "Why would my father do this? Attacking the Northern Kingdom is madness." "It's not your father." The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. There was a man leaning against the frame, young, with blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. One of the scouts. "What do you mean?" Kyle demanded. "Alpha Marcus isn't leading. It's Beta Thomas." The scout spat blood. "I heard them talking. He staged a coup, took control of the pack. And he's using Maya as an excuse to invade the north and expand territory." Cold horror ran through Maya. "My father? Is he alive?" "Imprisoned, along with your mother and several elders who opposed him." The scout nearly collapsed, and 2 soldiers held him up. "Thomas wants power, and he'll use this war to get it." "This changes everything," Darius said. "If Alpha Marcus was illegally deposed, we can—" "There's no time for politics," Kyle cut in. "We have an hour before 1,000 wolves try to knock down our gates." He looked at Maya, and through their newly formed bond, she felt the decision he was making. "No." "No what?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "You're going to think about handing me over." "Because if I hand myself over, Thomas has no more excuse. The war ends, and you die," Kyle said, voice dangerous. "You think he'll just let you go? He'll use you or kill you. I won't allow either." "You'll let your people die for me?" "I'll let my people fight for their Luna." The declaration echoed through the hall, and everyone froze. Kyle had never publicly declared the bond, but now there was no taking it back. "Maya is my mate. She's your queen, and we don't hand over our queen to any cowardly traitor." A roar of approval came from the commanders and soldiers in the hall. Maya felt hot tears on her face. "Kale, together," he said firmly, taking her hands. "We face this together." The next hour was a blur of preparations. Maya was dressed in leather armor, light but protective, and given 2 daggers. It wasn't much, but it was something. When the cries of "They're here" echoed through the walls, Maya was beside Kale in the courtyard, watching the gates. "You don't have to fight," Kale said quietly. "Yes, I do. They came because of me. I won't hide." He looked at her with something like pride. "Then stay close to me." The gates began to shake under the blows. Once, twice, 3 times. Wood creaking, metal groaning. Then they burst. Wolves in human and animal form poured in, roaring. Battle exploded in immediate violence. Metal against metal, claws against armor, screams of pain and fury. Maya fought as Kale had taught her. Blocked, attacked, moved. Her dagger found flesh more than once, and she forced herself not to think, just react. Survive. Kyle was a force of nature beside her, taking down enemies with brutal efficiency. And through the bond, Maya could feel his fierce determination, his absolute refusal to let any wolf get near her. But there were too many. For every wolf taken down, 2 more appeared. Then Maya saw him. Thomas cutting his way through the battle, eyes fixed on her. "There you are," he shouted. "The bitch who caused all this!" Kale roared and started to move to intercept him, but 3 wolves blocked him. Maya was alone. Thomas attacked, and Maya barely managed to block. He was beta, stronger, faster, more experienced. She didn't stand a chance. "You're coming with me," Thomas growled, "or I'll kill every wolf in this castle, starting with your precious Alpha King." "Never," Maya spat. He attacked again, and this time his hand closed around Maya's throat, lifting her off the ground. She clawed at his arm, trying to breathe. Black spots dancing in her vision. Then something extraordinary happened. The mark on Maya's neck exploded in flames. Not literal, but pure power. She felt her inner wolf, normally small and quiet, roar with strength she never knew she possessed. And more than that, she felt Kale through the bond, his strength flowing into her. Maya let the partial shift happen. Claws sprouted, teeth elongated, eyes glowed gold. And she sank her claws into Thomas's arm, tearing. He screamed and dropped her. Maya landed in a crouch, no longer the weak, frightened she-wolf. Now she was Luna, Queen of the North, mate of an Alpha King, and she was furious. "You betrayed your own alpha," Maya hissed, voice distorted by the partial shift. "Imprisoned my family. Used my name to start a war. This ends now." Thomas backed away, eyes wide. "You can't," Maya attacked. Not with perfect technique, she was still learning, but with pure fury and the bond's power running through her veins. Her claws tore, her teeth bit, and Thomas screamed. Then Kale was beside her, having defeated his opponents. Together, Alpha and Luna, they cornered the traitor. "Surrender," Kale ordered, voice echoing with absolute command. "Or death." Thomas looked around and saw the tide had turned. The northern wolves, energized by their new Luna's transformation, fought with renewed strength. And the Crescent Moonpack wolves, seeing their beta defeated, began to retreat. "I surrender," Thomas finally said, falling to his knees. The battle ended as quickly as it began. The invaders were captured or fled. The courtyard was covered with wounded, but victory was theirs. Maya collapsed against Kale, adrenaline finally dissipating. "Is it over?" "It's over," he confirmed, holding her tight. Through the bond, she felt his overwhelming relief. "You fought like a true Luna." "I just did what you taught me." "No." He pulled back to look her in the eyes. "You did more. You transformed. You became who you were always meant to be." Chapter 9. 3 days passed since the battle. Maya stood in the Great Hall, watching as Thomas was judged by the Alpha Council, representatives from all 6 packs of the Northern Kingdom, plus her father, Alpha Marcus, who had been freed and restored to command of the Crescent Moon Pack. Seeing her father again was strange. He seemed smaller somehow, older, and when his eyes met Maya's, there was shame there. "Beta Thomas," Magnus declared. You are accused of treason, coup d'état, illegal imprisonment, and inciting war without provocation. How do you plead? Guilty, Thomas said, voice lifeless. He knew there was no escape. Then, by authority of the council, you are sentenced to permanent exile. You will be marked as a traitor and banished from all territories. If any pack gives you shelter, it will be considered an act of war. Guards dragged Thomas out. Maya felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger. Just relief that it was over. Alpha Marcus, Cale spoke, standing. Would you like to address the council? Her father stood slowly, looking at Maya. I would like to apologize, publicly, to my daughter. The hall fell silent. Maya, he continued, voice breaking. I failed you. As a father, as an alpha, as a protector. I allowed you to be humiliated when I should have defended you. I put politics above blood. And I almost lost you because of my cowardice. Tears ran down his face now. I don't expect forgiveness. I only hope you know that my greatest regret is not seeing who you really were until it was too late. Maya felt Cale's hand squeeze hers in silent support. She took a deep breath. You're right, she said, voice firm. You failed me, and I won't pretend it didn't hurt, or that the pain simply disappears with an apology. She paused. But I also learned something. Carrying anger and hurt only hurts me. So I choose to let it go. Not for you, but for me, because I deserve peace. Her father sobbed, bowing his head. Thank you. It's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. Maya looked around the hall. But I also want to say something to all of you. For years, I believed I wasn't good enough, that I was ordinary, without gifts, without value. But the truth is, no one is born without value. Sometimes we just need the right place and the right people to discover who we really are. Kyle stood beside her, and when he spoke, his voice was full of pride. Maya isn't just my mate. She's Luna of the Northern Kingdom, and any wolf who treats her with less than complete respect will answer to me. A roar of approval echoed through the hall. After the meeting ended, Maya found her father outside. Maya, he began hesitantly, I know I have no right to ask, but are you happy here? She looked back at the castle, where Cale was talking with commanders, then back at her father. Yes, for the first time in my life, I feel like I belong somewhere. Then I'm happy for you. He placed a hand on her shoulder. And if you ever want to visit, or bring your mate for dinner, the door is always open. Maybe, Maya said. In time. He nodded, understanding. That's all I can ask. When he left with the other pack representatives, Maya felt as if a weight had been lifted. It wasn't complete forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Are you okay? Kyle asked, appearing beside her. Yes. Maya leaned into him. Just processing. There's something else I need to show you, he said, taking her hand. Come. He led her through corridors to a part of the castle Maya had never visited. When he opened a door, she gasped. It was a room, no, an entire suite. Enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows showing the mountains, a giant bed with dark velvet canopy, a fireplace already lit. There were clothes in the closet, books on shelves, and fresh flowers in vases. What is this? Maya asked. Our room, Kyle said simply. If you want it. The tower was temporary. But if you're going to stay, if you're going to be my Luna for real, then your place is here. With me. Maya looked around, processing. You prepared all this? Alara helped. But yes. He looked almost nervous. If it's too fast, I can... Maya silenced him with a kiss. It's perfect. The smile he gave lit up his entire face. And then he picked her up in his arms, making her laugh in surprise. Kyle, what? Tradition, he said, carrying her across the threshold. A Luna must be carried into her first room as queen. You're making that up. Maybe. He gently placed her on the bed. But it's still true now. They lay together, simply holding each other. Maya could feel the bond pulsing between them, not just connection, but deep and lasting love. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For giving me the chance to be more. For believing in me when no one else did. For teaching me to be strong. You were always strong, Kale corrected. You just needed to remember. Maya turned to look at him. I love you. It was the first time she'd said it aloud. And through the bond, she felt the emotion the words caused in him. I love you too, Kyle responded, touching her face. More than words can express. You're my mate, my Luna, my partner. And I'll spend every day showing you that. They kissed, and the kiss deepened, becoming something more urgent. Hands explored, clothes were removed with gentle haste, and when they finally gave themselves to each other, it was with the certainty that this was forever. The night enveloped them in its cloak, and for the first time in her life, Maya felt complete. Chapter 10. 6 months later, Maya stood on the balcony of the castle's highest tower, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The cold morning air kissed her skin, but she didn't feel cold. Not anymore. Something about becoming Luna, about completing the bond, had made her body more resistant, stronger. Thought I'd find you here. Kale's voice came from behind her. She turned and smiled. 6 months, and her heart still raced when she saw him. He wore only training pants, his bare torso showing scars from old battles and the new one on his back from that fateful night. Couldn't sleep, she admitted when he embraced her from behind. Nervous? A little. Today was the day of the official ceremony, the public presentation of Maya as Luna of the Northern Kingdom. Representatives from all packs, including hers, would be present. You're going to be amazing, Kale murmured against her hair. Like you always are. The last 6 months had been transformative. Maya was no longer the timid she-wolf who had fled on New Year's Eve. She trained daily with soldiers, participated in council meetings, and slowly learned what it meant to lead alongside Kale. It wasn't easy. There were wolves who questioned her authority, who murmured she was too young, inexperienced, weak. But Maya had learned to face them with the same determination Kale had taught her. And gradually, respect came. I need to tell you something, Maya said, turning in his arms. What? Olivia came yesterday, while you were on patrol. Kyle's expression darkened. What did she want? To apologize, really this time. Maya sighed. She said the bond with Dante wasn't what she thought it would be, that he's controlling, jealous, and that she realizes now he only wanted her because she was what he couldn't have. And do you believe her? I believe she's unhappy, and part of me feels sorry. Maya paused. But the other part feels she made her choice, just like I made mine. You don't have to forgive her. I know, and I don't have to. But I also don't need to carry anger anymore. She has to live with the consequences of her choices. I have to live with mine. Kale touched her cheek. And do you regret your choices? Not for a second. Maya smiled. Running that night, crossing your border, accepting the bond, it was the best thing I ever did. Even though it was terrifying? Especially because it was terrifying. I learned that sometimes we need to take risks to find where we really belong. Later that day, the Great Hall was packed. Wolves from all 6 packs occupied every space, dressed in their finest clothes, pack banners hanging from the beams. Maya wore a dark velvet dress Alara had made especially. Elegant but practical, suitable for a warrior Luna. Her hair was braided with silver threads, and on her forehead, a delicate crown of dark metal with stones that glowed like moonlight. When she and Kale entered, everyone stood. Magnus was in the center, holding an ancient staff. Today, he declared, voice echoing, we witness the official union of our Alpha King with his Luna. Let all know that Maya, formerly of the Crescent Moon Pack, is now Luna of the Northern Kingdom, Queen of 6 Packs, bonded mate of Alpha King Kale Thorn. He gestured for Maya and Kale to approach. Kneel, Magnus instructed. They obeyed, side by side. Magnus touched the staff first to Kale's head, then to Maya's. By ancient law, by sacred bond, by the people's choice, I declare you Alpha and Luna, united rulers, 2 halves of one whole. May your union bring strength, wisdom, and peace to the kingdom. A roar echoed through the hall. Approval, celebration, loyalty. When they stood, Kyle turned Maya to him and kissed her in front of everyone. It was a kiss of promise, of love, of partnership, and when they separated, Maya saw tears of joy in Alara's eyes, smiles on the commanders' faces, and even her father, at the back of the hall, nodding with approval. The party lasted until late at night. Music played, wolves danced, food and drink flowed freely. Maya spent hours greeting wolves, accepting oaths of loyalty, talking with pack leaders. But the most significant moment came when a young she-wolf, no more than 16, approached timidly. "Luna Maya?" she said quietly. "Can I speak with you?" "Of course." Maya stepped away from the crowd, taking the girl to a quieter corner. "How can I help?" I'm like you were," the girl admitted, tears in her eyes. "Without gifts, ordinary. And my pack. They say I'll never find a mate, that I'll never be anything." Maya's heart ached for the girl. "What's your name?" "Sarah." "Sarah." Maya held her hands. "Look at me. I once believed exactly that I was ordinary, worthless, that I'd never be chosen. But you know what I learned? Value doesn't come from gifts or powers. It comes from who you are inside, your strength, your kindness, your courage. But how do I find that? You already have it. You had the courage to come talk to me, didn't you? To share your pain?" Maya smiled. "That's the first lesson. Be brave enough to be vulnerable. And then be brave enough to fight for what you deserve. What if I fail? Then you try again. Until you succeed." Maya squeezed her hands. "And if you ever need a place to go, remember? The doors of the Northern Kingdom are always open to she-wolves who need a new beginning." Sarah sobbed and hugged Maya. "Thank you, Luna." When the girl walked away, Maya felt Kale beside her. "You're going to change many lives," he said softly. "I hope so, because someone changed mine." Late at night, when everyone had left or gone to sleep, Maya and Kale climbed to the private balcony of their quarters. The full moon shone, illuminating everything in silver. "Do you remember," Maya began, "the first time you brought me here? I was in rags, crying, broken. And I knew in that moment," Kale said, "that you were going to turn my world upside down." "Did I?" "Completely." He pulled her into his arms. "And I wouldn't change anything." Maya rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "You know what's funny? I spent so much time wishing to be special, to have gifts, to be noticed. But I discovered I already had everything inside me. I just needed the right place to flourish. And this is your place. By my side. Forever. Forever," Maya agreed. They stayed like that, beneath the moon that had united them, surrounded by the kingdom that was now theirs to protect. And Maya realized she had found something more precious than any gift or power. She had found belonging, purpose, love, and most importantly, she had found herself. The girl who had been rejected and humiliated was now Luna of 6 packs. The girl who thought she'd never be chosen was now mate of a king. And the girl who didn't believe in fate now knew that sometimes the best things come when we least expect them. "I love you," she whispered. "And I love you," Kale responded. "My Luna, my Maya, my home." And beneath the light of the moon that witnessed their beginning, they sealed their promise with a kiss, not of ending, but of beginning, of everything still to come. The end. Dear listener, if you've made it this far, I hope Maya's journey touched your heart as much as it touched mine in telling it. Which part moved you the most? Was it the initial humiliation when Maya was publicly rejected? The moment Kale first claimed her? The revelation of the sacred territory law? The battle where Maya discovered her true strength? Or perhaps the ending, when she finally found her place? This story speaks about second chances, about discovering that our strength was always within us, and about how sometimes we need to be broken to be rebuilt even stronger. If you'd like to hear more stories with ancient supernatural laws, destined mates and heroines who transform pain into power, leave it in the comments. Your words are what fuel these narratives. Thank you for joining me on this journey beneath the moon. Until